Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video. And today is an exciting day because I'm setting up a new bullet journal, a brand new notebook for the second half of 2023. This came at the perfect time because those of you who watched my June plan with me already know that there was a bit of a cat-induced accident involving a lot of water all over my bullet journal. So even though we were able to mostly rescue my current bullet journal, it felt like time maybe to move into a new notebook that had a little bit more structural integrity. I'm also very excited to use this particular notebook. This was one from Archer and Olive's summer collection, I believe, last year, and I just adore this chartreuse color with these mushrooms on the front, the vegan leather. It feels very summery, but also like it'll work well going into fall and the early winter, and I just love it. I think it's so cute, and I'm very excited to use it. If you've watched my new bullet journal setup videos in the past, you'll be familiar with my little fold-out spread that I like to add into the inner cover, and this new setup is no different. I definitely wanted to do it again, but I had a new fun idea for how to use that space this time around. In the past, I've typically used this spread for things like grid spacing and keys and an ideal day spread and things along those lines. But this time I had a great idea that I got from another YouTube channel, How to ADHD, and I'm very excited to incorporate this into my new bullet journal. To create this flip out spread, I like to use a slightly thicker paper, some sort of cardstock, cut it to size with my paper cutter, and then fold it in half, gluing one side down on that inner cover so that I can fold it out and be able to reference at least that half of the spread no matter where I am in my notebook. I always love to hear how y'all use your fold-out spread, those of you who have taken it on for your own bullet journals. So let me know in the comments down below what you are currently using your fold-out spread for, if you use one, or what you would want to use it for if you haven't tried it yet, but you're considering it. Before I get to properly working on these spreads though, I have to put something on to entertain myself. I am always either listening to a podcast or an audiobook or watching a YouTube video or a movie or a TV show when I'm setting up my bullet journal, which is where this video's sponsor, Surfshark VPN, comes in. For those who don't know, a VPN is a virtual private network which keeps your online identity safe by encrypting all of the information sent between your device and the internet. This keeps your personal data protected from big companies or cyber criminals. A VPN swaps the real location of your device with a new one by changing your IP address. This way you can virtually travel to any country around the globe. I've been practicing my French a lot recently, reading French books, doing French study, and watching French movies and TV shows. And I really wanted to take this time while I was setting up my new bullet journal to watch a French film, and I'd recently heard about a really fun yet strange French film called Peau d'Ane that I wanted to watch, but unfortunately it wasn't on Canadian Netflix. So I opened up Surfshark, switched my location to France, opened Netflix, and voila. I have access to French Netflix, and I'm able to watch Peau d'Ane along with a bunch of other French films that I otherwise wouldn't have access to. As a side note, if any of you have watched this film, please let me know your thoughts in the comments because I enjoyed it, but it was also one of the strangest films I have ever watched. Surfshark has over 3,200 servers in 95 different countries, allowing you to access the content libraries of other countries from the streaming services you love, like Netflix. It's also super helpful if you're on vacation, but you really want to keep on top of your favorite shows. You can change your location back to your home country, and you won't miss a thing. Because a VPN encrypts your online data and helps to secure your personal information, you can feel secure even when you're browsing on public Wi-Fi, like at your local coffee shop, keeping your data safe from hackers. Surfshark also has a clean web feature which blocks ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, allowing you to surf the web safely. Masking your IP address is essential to being private online. A VPN makes sure that your city, country, and download history aren't linked to your identity. Surfshark will never monitor, track, or store what you do online, meaning no connection or activity logs. Because Surfshark VPN is sponsoring this video, they have provided me an amazing discount code for all of you. Be sure to use my code PBBSquad for 3 extra months for free. That's promo code PBB Squad for 3 extra months free from Surfshark VPN. Make sure to use the link in my description box, and remember that Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is absolutely no risk to trying it out. And now let's get to creating these spreads in my new bullet journal while I watch the very strange film that is Peau d'Âne. For the theme of this setup, I wanted to keep things very, very simple, minimalist, slightly botanical in nature to play with the design, the emblem on the front. So I'm incorporating a little bit of craft paper using the dotted craft paper from Archer & Olive's Neapolitan B5 size notepads for just a little bit of color, a little bit of warmth, some texture. And other than that, I'm keeping it simple, only using black pens, no other color, nothing too fancy or complicated. This is a really easy theme to use for a new bullet journal because it's quite simple, quite quick to set up new spreads and still keep everything feeling cohesive. Quite a few bullet journals ago, I started naming my bujos, inspired by my friend Caitlin over at Caitlin's Corner. And for this bullet journal, I wanted to name it something mushroom inspired because of the emblem on the front. And I asked one of my patrons, who is our resident mushroom and fungi expert, and they gave me a couple awesome options. My favorite, though, was chanterelle, which is the common name of several species of fungi in the genera Cantharellus, Craterellus, Gomphus, and Polyozellis. I probably mispronounced at least one of those names, but I tried. I also love that chanterelle sounds like a very French name, which felt apt as I was watching a French film. As always, all the supplies I'm using in this video will be linked in the description box, so check that out if you want to know exactly what supplies I'm using. I also decided to add a little border around the name just to sort of finish it off. Y'all know I love to add a border. If a spread is missing something, my go-to solution is adding a border or a frame, and it always works. I'm also, of course, adding my name in here. As for the decorative element, I am adding a bunch of leaves. I wanted sort of crawling, sprawling vines on the cover page. Still pretty simple, nothing too ridiculously fancy or realistic, just something to fill the space and add some visual interest. I'm starting with the basic outlines of the leaves, adding quite a few separate stems that the leaves are coming off of, sort of weaving in and out from each other, inspired by the weaving, branching hyphae of mycelial networks, which also ties in with mushrooms, since our bullet journal pick for May was all about fungi and mycelium and hyphae and mushrooms and all of that. Once I had the outlines, I grabbed a thinner nibbed pen to add just some veins, some details to the leaves. There's not really any rhyme or reason to this. I'm just kind of adding them where I want to add them, where I feel like they look good. Again, this is a very simple, minimalist, easy to create theme, and that's what I'm going for. Just something simple, yet interesting to look at. Hopefully. As I was finishing this spread, the film was coming to a close and I was finding it hard to focus on my bullet journal because I was invested at this point. So I had to enjoy watching the ending, which had a big surprise. I'm not going to spoil it here, but again, anyone who's seen Peau d'Âne, I did not expect that one aspect at the end. I need to look up internet theories around that ending for sure. C'était très intéressant, mais ben, c'était étrange. Moving on to the inner flap, and this is the exciting spread that I'm adding here, and it is going to take up the whole inner extra flap spread, both sides, and this spread is going to be a dopamine menu, or a dopa menu. Like I said, I got the idea from How to ADHD, and I'll link this specific video where she explains what a dopa menu is and how to make one, so you can check it out if you're interested. But basically, a very brief explanation. The concept behind the dopamine menu or the dopa menu is to create a resource for yourself so that when you're critically low on dopamine and you're seeking for that dopamine fix, you have a bunch of options that are things that better align with your values and your goals, healthier options maybe, than what you typically would reach for. And having this at your fingertips means that you're more likely to reference it and pick one of these things and spend your time, get your dopamine from something that you feel better about, instead of always going to those same things that maybe give you that quick shot of dopamine, but don't make you feel good in the long run. So this is structured like a menu. So I have a section for appetizers, sides, entrees, and desserts. Appetizers are quick hits of dopamine that I can get in 5 to 10 minutes at the very most. Sides are options for things that I can add in simultaneously while I'm doing something else to up the amount of dopamine I'm getting from whatever the activity is. Entrees are things that take a little bit longer, so they might be things that I could do on a lunch break, before or after work, or maybe on a day off. And then desserts are those things that are my go-to easy dopamine fixes, the things that I've trained myself to do that aren't necessarily things that I want to spend as much time doing as I do, aren't necessarily the most productive, in line with my values, healthy choices for me. And it doesn't mean that they're off the table completely. They're just desserts. You know, they have a little less substance than some of the other options, and there may be things that I should use more in moderation. Of course, everyone's dopamine menu is going to look different. It really depends on what works for you, what actually gives you a hit of dopamine, and what you want to be spending your time on. But I'll share mine in case it gives you some ideas. So for appetizers, I have 1 minute of jumping jacks, 5 minutes of stretching, make a cup of coffee or tea, complete a lesson on Duolingo, tidy my space for 5 minutes, go outside for 5 minutes, play with the cats for 5 minutes, get a hug or text a friend or family member, and sing along to a favorite song. These are all quick things that I can do that will give me a little shot of dopamine without derailing me for long periods of time. My options for sides: putting on a playlist, podcast, or audiobook, switching my desk from sitting to standing height, and walking on a treadmill while I work. This is a future one because I don't have my standing desk and walking treadmill set up just yet, but it is coming very soon. Play with a fidget toy of some kind, chew gum, or change locations if that's possible. As for my entrees, I have doing yoga, a ballet bar, or biking on my stationary bike, reading, taking a shower, going for a walk around the neighborhood, playing a game, whether it's a video game, a board game, a card game, etc., singing or playing an instrument, spending quality time with my husband, Jason, bringing the cats outside with me on their harnesses, FaceTiming a friend or family member, sewing, or baking. And then for my desserts, these are the things that I typically reach for without thinking and spend more time doing than I would prefer: scrolling on social media, playing phone games, watching YouTube or TV, and snacking mindlessly. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. I'd love to hear yours. If you already have a dopamine menu, what are some things that are on yours? Or if you're thinking of making one, if you also have ADHD. By the way, I have ADHD. If you missed my other video where I talked about getting diagnosed and read some books about ADHD, I'll link that in the description box if you want to check it out. But if you missed it, I was diagnosed with ADHD a couple months ago, so I'm slowly trying to work on incorporating different strategies into my life to help me function a little bit better. So this is one of those strategies that I'm trying out. Now that I'm finished with all these spreads here in the inner cover, I'm flipping over to the next spread, which is going to be just a decorative spread. I always like to have a spread that announces what year the notebook is for, and I usually like to include a quote or maybe pick out a word that I'm going to focus on for the next 6 months. So here I'm going to have on the left side 2023, just a nice header, and then on the right side I'm going to have my word for the second half of 2023, which is halcyon, which means calm or peaceful, characterized by happiness, great success, and prosperity. It can be used to reference a period of time in the past that was idyllic and happy and peaceful, but it doesn't necessarily have to specifically talk about a time in the past. And I liked the idea of this word, which I just happened to come across, and when I looked up the definition, it felt like exactly how I would love the second half of my 2023 to be, but focusing on living a calm, peaceful, happy, successful, prosperous life, but just this idea of an idyllic, tranquil sort of feeling. I would love to have more of that in my life. So, halcyon is my word for the second half of 2023. If you have a word for 2023, whether it's the whole year or a portion of the year, I'd love to know what you picked in the comments down below. And again, I'm incorporating some of that craft paper from my Neapolitan notepad and some more of those branches and leaves in a bit of a random pattern. I'm combining two fonts for this setup, my tried and true scribbly serif font, which I haven't used in a little while. I was starting to miss it, so I brought it back this time around. For those who ask, it's based on the font Frederica the Great, if you want to download the font so that you can practice it yourself, and combining that with a simple monoline cursive. Once I finished this spread, I moved on to the next, which is going to be my future log. My future log used to be my most used spread for my yearly spreads that I would do in a new bullet journal setup. But after the last couple years, I feel like I'm using it so much less. I have fewer things that I leave the house to do that I would write on a future log. But slowly I'm starting to do more. I actually have a bit of a trip, a little vacation coming up relatively soon for the first time in a while. And things are starting to happen. So still creating my future log and hoping that I'll have more reasons to fill it in the next months and years. I always keep my future log pretty simple, just leaving space below each month's calendar to write out any birthdays, appointments, events, trips, whatever it is that I'm writing in so that I can keep on top of them. Since I only set up my bullet journal month by month, if anything comes up for a future month, I'll put it here. For full transparency, I will also put it in my calendar on my phone and set a reminder because I have ADHD, but I am a person who enjoys analog planning much more. I feel like it works with my brain better. So my primary place to put those things is my future log in my bullet journal. And then when I set up a new month in my bullet journal, I can flip to my future log and add in anything that's there into my calendar for the month, so I make sure I don't miss it. Continuing on with this theme, I'm using my craft paper for the actual calendars to tie it in with the rest of the spreads, and of course adding some more leaves. Flipping over to the next spread, which is going to be the final spread of this setup, keeping it short and sweet and simple and easy. Here I'm going to put my next two most used spreads in my yearly setups, ones that I've used for years at this point. On the left side is my waiting on spread, where I track packages that are coming to my house, and on the right is my period tracker. A basic rundown for anyone who isn't familiar with these spreads. The waiting on spread, I keep it really simple. I have a column for crossing off when something's arrived. I have a section for a description of what it is. Usually I'll put the store I ordered from and maybe a little little note about what it is if I need a reminder, the estimated delivery date, if there is one when I get my confirmation page, and the actual delivery date. This just helps when I come here to check if I notice that an estimated delivery date was a couple weeks ago and I still haven't received something. It reminds me to check in and make sure it didn't get lost or something. And it also helps me to know how long it actually takes to get things from different places if I'm repurchasing in the future. As for my period tracker, this is also a pretty simple spread and a spread that can be modified in many different ways to suit different needs. I keep mine pretty simple. I'll add a header along the top with the first initial of each month of the year. I personally like to include January through December in both of my bullet journals in the year, and I'll just transfer over the data so that no matter what bullet journal I'm in, I can always see the full year at a glance to see what's happening with my cycle visually and notice patterns. Then I'll add dots in those columns. Each dot represents a day of the month. And then I use different colors and symbols to track different things. So I personally like to make a larger dot, usually in a different color, to represent days that I'm on my period. I like to circle the dot on my ovulation day, and I'll cross through the dots either to the right or to the left or both to represent different symptoms that I'm tracking. But there are a million different options. You could use a bunch of different colors or different symbols or a combination of those to track basically as many symptoms or other things associated with your cycle or things that you're trying to see if they might be associated with your cycle as you like. But I love this setup. It's so simple, it's very quick to make, but it's also incredibly useful, and being able to see where things correlate, where certain symptoms pop up in relation to where I am in my cycle, being able to visually see any changes in my cycle that might be cause for concern. It's incredibly helpful, and I highly recommend it to all humans who menstruate and have a bullet journal. And with that, we've come to the end of this setup. Those are all the spreads I'm doing this time. Like I said, keeping it really simple, focusing on the most important things. I'll do a final flip through to show you all the spreads now that they're all finished. Again, we have this inner cover with my name and the name of the bullet journal, and the flip out spread with my dopamine menu. Then we have my cover page of sorts, 2023, and my word for the second half of the year, halcyon. Then we get into my future log, and last but not least, my waiting on spread and period tracker. So that is my super quick and easy, simple setup for my second bullet journal for 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you again to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to click the link in the description box and use my promo code PBB Squad for 3 extra months for free of Surfshark VPN. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave the emoji that represents how you want to feel for the second half of 2023 in the comments down below, and let me know what spreads you always make sure to include in your new bullet journal setups. I'm always curious to know what spreads are mainstays, staples for all of you. Thank you as always to my patrons for your support. I appreciate you all so much. And with that, I'm gonna get going. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.